All right, this video is going to be about how I prepped this engine to go into that CRV that I've been doing all the suspension work on. And I have another video on my channel on a review on an endoscope where you can see how I went down into each one of the intake ports and checked out how dirty the carbon buildup that was in those ports, and down in each one of the cylinders through the spark plug holes. But it'll kind of give you a good idea of some of the things that I dealt with in getting this thing ready. Okay, hope you enjoy the rest of the video. And you can see the carbon along the side. Now, it's not focusing because other stuff's in the way, but you can see how dirty that is down in there. And I just filled it up. But then I went and got myself an extension for some of these wire brushes. And that's just going to go on to my little impact. And I'm going to get it down there and turn my light on and do a little scrubbing. And I'll just put it on time lapse for this one. But I was able to get it out, and I made sure that I did not, or I had the valves closed, these intake valves closed. But you can see in there that it's in much better shape than what it was. There is a little more around that secondary intake valve for that VTEC. And I get a chance here, I will go in and get the endoscope also and check that out to see if by chance there are any little broken wires down in there. But in comparison, you can see over here on these other cylinders where I haven't touched it yet, that carbon buildup. It's clean right here where the injectors spray, but they get that afterburn and that carbon builds up in there. All right, there's that carburetor cleaner after sitting overnight. It held real nice, so that is going to get sopped out of there with a rag and scrubbed a little bit with the rag around the end of a screwdriver and clean that out. Then I've got the intake manifold clean. I let some of that seep down into the cylinders and cleaned off all the carbon off the top of the pistons. I would not recommend doing that. It's just going to flush carbon down in around the rings and, might cause problems. But I had a week to do this, for this stuff to dissolve that carbon. So I went ahead and did it, and I definitely would not do it in a car, for sure. But what I'm going to do now is I went ahead and removed all 6 of the valve cover hold down bolts, and I'm going to turn the camera around and unveil how good or how bad it looks on the inside of this used engine. Not too bad. I went ahead and got a new gasket and new seals. But wow, this does not look bad at all. All right, I have seen much worse. The sludge is not bad at all. Let's see, I don't feel any excessive wear. I see all the lobes on all the cams. I had to replace a cam on the other one that's in that car the last time. Now this actuator, I'm going to have to check the timing here, and I think it goes on compression on number 1, where that line and these two dots have to be to the top. But this is a clockwise rotating engine. We'll go ahead and looks like that's probably the position. Line these up. See those 2 lines right there? I'm checking to see how bad the cam chain is stretched. But with those 2 marks lined up with one another, those 2 dots straight up and down here, this right there, that little notch is supposed to be lined up exactly with the end of that arrow, and I'm not. So maybe while I've got it out here, I'll go ahead and I'll double check my process here. But right there is what it is supposed to look like. Right there. Like that. And then those 2 are supposed to be lined up. Nope, I'm gonna leave it alone. That looks pretty darn good to me. So somebody has kept the oil changed in this and done the regular maintenance on it. So I'm gonna check the valve clearances and reseal that and button her back up. When I pulled the valve cover off, I went ahead and made a valve adjustment clearance on each one of the tappets, and I went 9 on the intake side, and I went 10 thousandths on the exhaust side. And there are plenty of videos on the internet as far as making those adjustments, so I'll leave it to them. And each one of these took between, I'm going to say an 1/8 and a 1/4 turn, because they were definitely on the loose side. But that was taken care of, and I'm going to pour a little oil over the top of the camshafts and onto the rollers before I go ahead and seal this back up with that valve cover. All right, it took about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and cleaned off that valve cover. Got rid of some of the corrosion on it. Gonna throw a couple quick coats of paint on it. A couple quick coats and let it dry, and we'll see if we can't clean off the areas where I didn't want the paint, which I think I taped up most of them. Put a cover over the dipstick hole, tape the oil fill, and the very end of the breather hose. So I should be in pretty good shape. I went ahead and ordered a gasket set for this valve cover, and it comes with these seals, which they must make 2 different kinds of seals, but I'm going to match up what I took out. These are very easy to get out. I took a punch, ground a taper on the edge of it, and just went down on the side, bent it in, and folded it over. And then to get it out the rest of the way, I just got a screwdriver and popped it out. And those came out very easily. And these go in very easy. They just put some oil around the outside of them and shove them back in. And you can do it by hand. But this set also came with this base seal for it. And it came also with some of the gaskets for around that VTEC solenoid that mounts to the back of the head. And along with this kit, there were the 6 washer and seals that hold down the valve cover itself. So I'll put this on time lapse, and we'll just pump this out. right, that valve cover is ready to go back on, but before I do that, I want to point out that there are 4 spots where you need to put sealant. Right here, there's a joint. You need to put some there. Same thing on the other side of this valve cover, and then right at that joint, and again right on the other side of that same, just a little dab there to prevent it from leaking. I'll clean that surface up and get that valve cover back on. I did notice that I did have a broken bolt in the top of the valve cover, that it actually holds down a power steering mount here. So I drilled and tapped that and got rid of it. Spent a little time on the oil pan cleaning off some of the rust, and I've got some high temp black heat that I have some leftovers in the cabinet that I'm just going to paint that so that the rust hopefully stops for a while. Alright, that's how that turned out. Got 3 coats of that high temp Rust-Oleum heat paint on it, and should hold it for a little while. Alright, before I put this engine back in, I'm going to do a couple more things. I'm going to replace this gasket on this VTEC solenoid valve back here, this assembly that's on the back of the head. I'm going to take the camera, I'll bring it around here and I'll show it to you. And I'm going to clean up that bracket, but also while I have it off, as I'm turning this thing over, I've put the spark plug back in each one of the holes, and there is one of them that is a little less compression than the other ones. So I'm going to try it. I've never done it before, but I'm going to put my compression tester into each one of the spark plug holes, turn it over 5 or 6 times on the compression stroke with just a breaker bar, and I'm going to see what kind of compression that I can get and see how balanced they are. All right, here we are on the back side of the engine. See the exhaust manifold right here, and this is kind of difficult to get to when it's in the car, but there are just 3 mounting bolts that hold this to the back of the head, and then there is another bolt over here on the side that holds this shield in place. I believe it's supposed to be a heat shield, but those 3 bolts go in and bolt right to the head itself. And I'm going to take that off, replace the gasket, but I'm also going to clean up that bracket and throw a little paint on it before I put it back together. After about 14 times, it would not go up any higher, but these are the results that I got. 120 on this cylinder, 100 on that cylinder, 110 on this cylinder, and 120 again on this cylinder. So they're not too far out of balance, and I don't know how long the engine sat before I got it out of the junkyard. So hopefully if there is a stuck ring or anything like that, it will seat itself in or break itself loose, whatever it needs to do, and this thing will perform all right. So I'll get to changing that valve. All right, there it is on the floor. There's the gasket that I'm going to be replacing, and this O-ring style gasket has a filter screen that's molded right into it, and that goes into the solenoid valve itself. I'll just take my little tool here, grab onto that and pull that out. And the last one I replaced was all full of metal shavings. And if they get really dirty, I know that it really messes with the performance and gives you, I don't know what kind of code, but there is a code. And then up here on the engine, that's the mating surface. So I'll clean that out a little bit and go ahead, take that shield off of it and paint it and get it back on. All right, installing these two engine seals, front and back, is probably the last thing that I'm going to need to do to get this engine prepped and ready to go in. The rear seal is a 228008, and the front seal is a 710608, and they're both National Oil seals. And to get the one in the back end of the engine, I'm going to need to pull it off the engine stand. I was able to get it out without removing it from the engine stand, but to get it in square and straight, I'm going to go ahead and pick it off with a cherry picker. But I'm going to turn the camera around. First, I guess I'm going to turn around and show you what all I did to prep it to put it in. Okay, first off, I pressure washed it, then I brought it inside, used the end scope on it and cleaned out all my intake ports, and I used a carburetor cleaner which cut the carbon real well, and I actually cleaned off the tops of the pistons with a shop vac, some of that carburetor cleaner and the shop vac, but then I pulled the valve cover off, and you can see I painted that, and I did a valve adjustment while I was in there. I've switched over the new coil packs that we had put in his other engine, and while the valve cover was off, I went ahead and checked for timing chain stretch. And on this end, on the tensioner pulley, we had put a new one on that one last year on the other old one, so I went ahead and exchanged that. I'm not doing anything with the water pump because it feels nice and tight. Had off the VTEC solenoid valve and resealed that with a new O-ring type gasket, painted the cover on that, and did an oil change on it, painted the oil pan, and I think it's just about ready to go in. And to put in those oil seals, again, I'm going to use this PVC on the front for driving that seal in, and then on the back, once I get this thing off the stand, I am going to use that piece of, I believe it's 3-inch PVC. It's just a coupler that I had laying around upstairs from another project, but I'm going to put it on time lapse and we will get those seals installed. Alright, that's going to be the end of this video. But just to let you know, while I was getting this engine ready during the bad weather, I was outside during the good weather and I was pulling that engine. So now all I have to do is get back in and edit this stuff and get it posted. So as soon as I get the engine prep film done, I'm going to turn and get the video done, posted for pulling the engine out. And while I'm working on that, I hopefully will be reinstalling the engine and posting that one shortly. But I really do appreciate you watching. Have a great day.